You know, Sandy talks about coming out in front with her, you know, she likes to stand out here because she feels like one of those little ladies who looks between her steering wheel and out on the But me, coming from giants of a family, don't have that problem. My grandmother, can you imagine, in 1920 was 5'9". So we come from big people. And I don't feel big. I just want you to know I don't feel big. I see myself in pictures and I'm like, wow, you're really tall. But I feel like I look at you in the eye. I mean, I don't know. I wanted to talk about Thanksgiving this morning, but I wanted to bring you a little bit different aspect. 2 weeks ago, Angie talked about Thanksgiving, and then last Sunday, Reverend Sandy talked about Thanksgifting. But one of the quieter things that we celebrate this weekend is community. And I wanted to bring some thoughts to you about community that I think that we, without realizing it, when we sit around the table with friends and family, we're actually honoring that memory of when the Pilgrims came, and you all know they had trouble with their boat. They arrived on the shores of Plymouth way late into the fall, so they were confronted with a New England winter without, you know, a Motel 6 or restaurants down the street or grocery stores. And and many of them died trying to get through that winter. But then the following fall, they were able to celebrate the ones that were still living. But they celebrated community with their Indian neighbors who had helped them, teach them how to live and grow in that area. And we're grateful, deeply grateful, for one, the opportunity to not be persecuted anymore by the British, who drove them out, in fact, drove them out of even Europe. They had tried to escape to the Netherlands and were not able to honor their religion there, and so they fled to the colonies. And so 200 years later, for those of you who know that history, we made Thanksgiving a holiday, and then today we are still celebrating this joyous opportunity to thank God for the gifts that we have in our lives. And so leading into this, I just wanted to share in the idea of community that in the last couple of months, and this happens to me on occasion, and it would be fun to talk to the other ministers that get up here and share with you from time to time, that sometimes I get in a place of, when I come up here to share with you, what I tell you, is it of value to you? And I don't necessarily think that it's coming from a place of self-pity necessarily, as much as, am I on track? Is my gift, does it have value? It keeps me humble, and it also keeps me understanding my own path to my own spirituality. So, loving how the universe thinks outside of the box. I was sitting there watching a movie on Netflix called The Christmas Cottage. I don't know how many of you have seen it. It's about Thomas Kincaid, the painter. It's very, very inspirational. If you get a chance to see it, I recommend it. But it's about young Thomas, who was going to art school in Berkeley, and he came home for Christmas and discovered that his mother had been fired from her job and her house was in foreclosure. And so the boys, he and his brother, decided to stop what they were doing, get jobs, and help their mother through this difficult financial period of time. So one of the things that Thomas found in terms of work was the mayor had asked him if he would paint the side of a grocery store a mural of Placerville up the road, and for $500, which was not nearly what the bank needed, but it was certainly helpful. And his next door neighbor was an aging, very well-known artist who was his mentor, and his name was Glenn. And Thomas was sitting there, probably about 20 years old, and down, bad-mouthing this painting. He just really didn't see any value in painting this mural on the wall. And it was so inspirational because of what Glenn said. I actually watched it again so I could recapture what the man told Thomas. And he said, always do your best. And when you paint something like this, when you give of yourself, it is to inspire your neighbors. He says, you could actually change the way you see yourself and they see themselves. You could actually change their life. And most importantly, you could introduce men to their souls. And so that re-inspired me as to what I'm doing when I share with you on these Sunday mornings, where my place is, where I'm coming from, and what gifts I bring you is what is happening in my own life, my own path. And my great love for you in that I hope with all my heart that I might be able to inspire you to walk out and feel better, to go out and see yourselves in a new light. Because I was thinking that as the people that we love so much globally are those people that we know are inspired. Isn't that true? The great artists that come up with something spontaneous and it is brilliant. And we know that they got that from connecting with Source. We can have technicians and we can have writers know how to write, painters know how to paint, musicians know how to make music. But it is when they are inspired that we walk out lighter. So a few weeks ago, I was upstairs and I've been teased about the fact that I like to pontificate. And it's true, I have to acknowledge that. I was raised by a pontificator, I'll have you know. And so,
good old family tradition.
Speaking of memories, my dad, he was a brilliant man, very troubled, but he was brilliant, and loved to talk about philosophy. So I remember that he and my stepmother were getting loaded one Christmas, and they had gotten into this. She was very, very Catholic. She had not taken her final vows to marry my father. But anyway, yeah, long story. And so they would get into it, because my dad was a Christian Zionist, you know, had been raised that way and whatnot. And here's the Catholic, here they go. And so, and I remember that Harold, my sister's husband, and I were sitting on the couch. We were getting loaded too. And, you know, eggnog and stuff. And so we were watching these two bounce the ball back and forth. And the phrase that I remember, and I just about fell on the floor, we both did, was that my father, in his brilliant metaphoric way of shaping things, told Margie, he goes, "Margie, does that Christmas tree look like a pickle to you?" And we're like, okay, this is going to be fun. We're going to see how he spins spirituality into this. So anyway, upstairs 2 weeks ago, I had a client come into the shop, and she's been a client of mine for 22 years, on and off. And she's had a lot of trouble with her mother through the year. I mean, just really, really sad stuff. Mother's just very difficult. And she had so much, she'd been so excited the last few months because her mother seemed to be finally coming around. And they were bonding, and there was a lot more warmth to their relationship, and things looked to her like they were healing, finally, after all these years. Well, it turns out that her mother wanted the family silver that her grandmother had given her. And so the mother conned and manipulated and maneuvered her into getting the silver. So, and the agreement was, you know, that they would share the silver, but as soon as her mother got what she wanted, she turned on her. And she was, one more time, just absolutely devastated. So she was sitting there, and I said, and just a little bit of background on this is that my client works for Child Protection Services. So I said, do you mind if I share with you some of the patterns that I see going on here? And I said, it's like your family you're in this tennis match where you hit this ball. I'm the victim. No, I'm the victim. No, I'm the victim. No, I'm the victim.